Okay, now we come to Sutta number 15, Majjhima Nikaya. It's called the Anumana Sutta. Inference, that's the title. We're using this book by Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi. The only thing is sometimes some of the words I'm not so happy, I change a bit. That's have I heard. On one occasion, the Venerable Maha Moggallana was living in the Vagga country at Sumaragira in the Besakala Grove, the deer park. There he addressed the monks thus, "Friends, monks, friend," they replied. The Venerable Maha Moggallana said this, "Friends, though a monk asks thus, let the Venerable Ones admonish me. I need to be admonished by the Venerable Ones. Yet if he is difficult to admonish and possesses qualities that make him difficult to admonish, if he is impatient and does not take instruction rightly, then his companions in the holy life think that he should not be admonished or instructed. They think of him as a person not to be trusted." I stop here for a moment. Maha Moggallana is one of the very senior disciples of the Buddha. So sometimes he gives Dhamma talks to the other monks. The translation here, this friend is avuso. During the Buddha's time, the monks address each other as avuso. Sometimes it's translated as friend, like here. Sometimes it's translated as venerable. Or reverend. So here Venerable Maha Moggallana says, even though sometimes a monk asks to be admonished, to be told his faults, but if he has qualities that make him difficult to admonish, then the other monks would be reluctant to admonish him. If he is impatient, does not take instruction rightly, so since it is difficult to admonish him, other monks will not want to admonish him. Now in the Vinaya books, in the Mahavagga chapter 1, when a new monk comes to train under a teacher, because a new monk is supposed to spend 5 years under a teacher, and if he possesses certain qualities, the teacher is supposed to dismiss him, throw him out. If he possesses one of 5 qualities, one is he does not have much faith in the teacher. Number 2, he does not have much respect for the teacher. Number 3, he does not have much affection for the teacher. Number 4, he does not have a sense of shame towards the teacher. Not much sense of shame towards the teacher. Number 5, he does not have much development or progress under the teacher. And the teacher is supposed to chase him away, dismiss him. So that's why, if a certain monk is difficult to admonish, then others will not admonish him. Now the sutta continues. What qualities make him difficult to admonish? Here a monk has evil wishes and is dominated by evil wishes. This is a quality that makes him difficult to admonish. Again, a monk lauds himself and disparages others. This is a quality that makes him difficult to admonish. 3. Again, a monk is angry and is overcome by anger. Number 4, a monk is angry and revengeful. Number 5, a monk is angry and stubborn. Number 6, a monk is angry and utters words bordering on anger. Number 7, a monk is reproved and he resists the reprover. Number 8, a monk is reproved and he denigrates the reprover. Number 9, a monk is reproved and he counter-reproves the reprover. Number 10, a monk is reproved and he prevaricates, leads the talk aside and shows anger, hate and bitterness. Number 11, a monk is reproved and he fails to account for his conduct. Number 12, a monk is contemptuous and domineering. 13. A monk is envious and avaricious. 14. A monk is fraudulent and deceitful. 15. A monk is obstinate and arrogant. 16. A monk adheres to his own views, holds on to them tenaciously, and relinquishes them with difficulty. This is a quality that makes him difficult to admonish. Monks, friends, these are called the qualities that make him difficult to admonish. Stop here for a while. So here there are 16 qualities that make a monk difficult to admonish. Number 1, he has evil wishes. Maybe he desires to be famous. He wants fame. Or any other evil wish. Number 2, he lauds himself, praises himself and puts down others, disparages others. Ego. Number 3, the monk is angry. He cannot control, overcome by anger, cannot control his temper. Number 4, a monk is angry and revengeful. If you admonish him, he might want to take revenge. Number 5, a monk is angry and stubborn. Stubborn, probably doesn't want to change. Number 6, a monk is angry and utters words bordering on anger. So he speaks angry words back. Number 7, a monk is reproved and he resists the reprover. Tries to defend himself, does not want to admit. Number 8, a monk is reproved and he denigrates the reprover. So when you admonish him, he talks bad about you. Number 9, a monk is reproved and he counter-reproves the reprover. So you tell him his fault, he'll tell you back your fault. 10, a monk is reproved and he prevaricates and leads the talk aside and shows anger, hate and bitterness. So when you tell him his fault, he speaks or acts evasively. Number 11, a monk is reproved and he fails to account for his conduct. Does not want to account for his failings. 12, a monk is contemptuous and domineering. Arrogant, domineering. 13, envious and avaricious. Extremely greedy, will not change. 14, fraudulent and deceitful. This one is very important. If a disciple is fraudulent and deceitful, he doesn't want to show his faults to the teacher, then the teacher cannot make him improve. A person who wants to learn, who wants to improve, progress on the spiritual path, he has got to be very straightforward. Whatever faults he has got to expose them to the teacher, not be deceitful. 15, obstinate and arrogant, stubborn and haughty. 16, adheres to his own views, holds on to them tenaciously. Will not change his views. You tell him his wrong views, he will not change. So these are the qualities. If a monk possesses these qualities, then his companions in the holy life would not want to admonish him because he doesn't want to be admonished, he doesn't want to improve. And Venerable Maha Moggallana continues. Friends, though a monk does not ask thus, let the Venerable Ones admonish me. I need to be admonished by the Venerable Ones. Yet, if he is easy to admonish and possesses qualities that make him easy to admonish, if he is patient and takes instruction rightly, then his companions in the holy life think that he should be admonished and instructed, and they think of him as a person to be trusted. What qualities make him easy to admonish? Here, a monk has no evil wishes and is not dominated by evil wishes. This is a quality that makes him easy to admonish. Again, a monk does not laud himself nor disparage others. Number 3, he is not angry nor allows anger to overcome him. 4, he is not angry or revengeful. 5, not angry or stubborn. 6, not angry and does not utter words bordering on anger. 7, when reproved, he does not resist the reprover. When reproved, he does not denigrate the reprover. When reproved, he does not counter-reprove. He is reproved and he does not prevaricate, lead the talk aside and show anger, hate and bitterness. When reproved, he does not fail to account for his conduct, as he explains himself. 12, he is not contemptuous or domineering. 13. He is not envious or avaricious. 14. He is not fraudulent or deceitful. 15. He is not obstinate or arrogant. Again, a monk does not adhere to his 16. He does not adhere to his own views or hold on to them tenaciously, and he relinquishes them easily. This is a quality that makes him easy to admonish. Friends, these are called the qualities that make him easy to admonish. Stop here for a moment. So here the converse, if a monk is easy to admonish, makes himself admonishable, then other monks observes that he is willing to be reproved, willing to change, then the other monks will want to help him and tell him his faults. Now friends, a monk ought to infer about himself in the following way. 1. A person with evil wishes and dominated by evil wishes is displeasing and disagreeable to me. If I were to have evil wishes and be dominated by evil wishes, I would be displeasing and disagreeable to others. A monk who knows this should arouse his mind thus: I shall not have evil wishes and be dominated by evil wishes. Similarly, for the other qualities, he thinks if a person has these evil qualities, then he is displeasing. And if he himself has these qualities, he is also displeasing to the others. So he changes, does not allow himself to have these evil qualities. So for a person to change himself, first he has to acknowledge he has these faults. If a person is not willing to admit your faults, you will never improve. So when another person tells you your fault, you should not try to defend yourself, but in the Buddha's teachings, we should be willing to accept criticism, to consider whether what people say about us is reasonable or not. And he continues, now friends, a monk should review himself thus: do I have evil wishes, and am I dominated by evil wishes? If when he reviews himself he knows, I have evil wishes, I am dominated by evil wishes, then he should make an effort to abandon those evil, unwholesome states. But if when he reviews himself he knows, I have no evil wishes, I am not dominated by evil wishes, then he can abide happy and glad, training day and night in wholesome states. Again, a monk should review himself thus: do I praise myself and disparage others? Do I adhere to my own views, hold on to them tenaciously, etc.? So when he reviews himself, then he knows that he does not have, if he has these evil qualities, then he should make an effort to abandon those unwholesome states. And if he does not have them, then he can be happy and glad, training day and night to develop wholesome states and abandon unwholesome states. Friends, when a monk reviews himself thus, if he sees that these evil, unwholesome states are not all abandoned in himself, then he should make an effort to abandon them all. But if when he reviews himself thus, he sees that they are all abandoned in himself, then he can abide happy and glad, training day and night in wholesome states. Just as when a woman or a man, young, youthful, fond of ornaments, on viewing the image of her own face in a clear, bright mirror, or in a basin of clear water, sees a smudge or a blemish on it, she makes an effort to remove it. But if she sees no smudge or blemish on it, she becomes glad thus: it is a gain for me that it is clean. So too, when a monk reviews himself thus, then he can abide happy and glad, training day and night in wholesome states. This is what the Venerable Maha Moggallana said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Venerable Maha Moggallana's words. That's the end of the suttas. So here you see a senior monk like the Venerable Maha Moggallana, he's trying to advise the younger monks how to improve themselves. There's one thing very good about these suttas. They're all very practical. Very practical. And if you study them, and you'll find that you can use them to improve yourself and progress on the spiritual path. This is what the spiritual path is about, to change our character for the better. Even if you are not a monk, even for lay people, if you change yourself for the better, then you find that your life is well lived. At the end of your life, when you are about to pass away, then you don't have remorse, you don't be depressed about yourself. Okay, the next sutta, number 16, Ceto Kila Sutta, the wilderness in the heart. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. There he addressed the monks thus: Monks, Venerable Sir, they replied. The Blessed One said this: Monks, that any monk who has not abandoned 5 wildernesses in the heart and has not severed 5 shackles in the heart should come to growth, increase, and fulfillment in this Dhamma Vinaya. This is impossible. What monks are the 5 wildernesses in the heart that he has not abandoned? Here a monk is doubtful, uncertain, undecided, and unconfident about the teacher, and thus his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, that is the first wilderness in the heart that he has not abandoned. Stop here for a moment. Here, this first one is doubtful, unconfident about the teacher. This teacher here refers to the Buddha in the monks. For the monks during the Buddha's time, the only teacher is the Buddha. Again, a monk is doubtful, uncertain, undecided, and unconfident about the Dhamma, as his mind does not incline to ardor. That is the second wilderness in the heart that he has not abandoned. Again, a monk is doubtful, uncertain, undecided, and unconfident about the Sangha, as his mind does not incline to ardor. That is the third wilderness in the heart that he has not abandoned. Again, a monk is doubtful, uncertain, undecided, and unconfident about the training, as his mind does not incline to ardor. That is the fourth wilderness in the heart that he has not abandoned. Stop here for a moment. So here, first one is doubtful about the Buddha. Second, doubtful about the Dhamma. Third, doubtful about the Sangha. Fourth, doubtful about the training. The training here normally refers to the training of Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, moral conduct, concentration, and wisdom. You can also say this is a training in the Noble Eightfold Path. Again, the monk is angry and displeased with his companions in the holy life, resentful and careless towards them, and thus his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, that is the fifth wilderness in the heart that he has not abandoned. These are the 5 wildernesses in the heart that he has not abandoned. Here the last one, is angry and displeased with his companions in the holy life. A monk, he should have good relationship with his fellow monks, so that they can help him and he can help them, and helping each other, they can progress on the spiritual path. If as a monk, the Buddha says, a monk has renounced, he does not have a mother or a father to look after him. If monks do not look after themselves, who is going to look after them? So having friendship with other monks is quite important. What monks are the 5 shackles in the heart that he has not severed? Here a monk is not free from lust, desire, affection, thirst, fever, and craving for sensual pleasures, and thus his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, that is the first shackle in the heart that he has not severed. Again, a monk is not free from lust, desire, affection, thirst, fever, and craving for the body. As his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, that is the second shackle in the heart that he has not severed. Again, a monk is not free from lust, desire, affection, thirst, fever, and craving for form. As his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, that is the third shackle in the heart that he has not severed. Stop here for a moment. So here, the 5 shackles. The first one is craving for sensual pleasures. The second one is sensual pleasures means craving for pleasurable sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and touch. And the second one is craving for the body. Here, craving for the body refers to his own body. Vain about his body and all that. And the third one is craving for form. Here, craving for form probably refers to other bodies. Craving for other bodies. Especially those of the opposite sex. Again, a monk eats as much as he likes until his belly is full and indulges in the pleasure of sleeping, lolling, and drowsing. As his mind is not inclined to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, that is the fourth shackle in the heart that he has not severed. Again, a monk lives the holy life aspiring to some order of gods. Thus, by this virtue or observance or asceticism or holy life, I shall become a great god or some lesser god. And thus his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, this is the fifth shackle in the heart that he has not severed. These are the 5 shackles in the heart that he has not severed. Monks, that any monk who has not abandoned these 5 wildernesses in the heart and severed these 5 shackles in the heart should come to growth, increase, and fulfillment in this Dhamma Vinaya. That is impossible. Dhamma Vinaya, is the teachings of the Buddha. The Dhamma, the Suttas, and Vinaya is the monastic discipline for monks. So here the 5 shackles is craving for sensual pleasures, craving for his body, craving for other bodies, and eating too much. When we eat too much, we tend to become sleepy. If we are fat, we tend to want to sleep more. But the more we sleep, the more we want to sleep. So that's not good. If we want to progress in the spiritual path, we have to be a bit ascetic. Just sleep the minimum that we need. We sleep too little, also you won't progress. You sleep too much also, so you have to know what is the minimum you require. And then the last one is living the holy life, aspiring to be some god, deva, so that you have a good life. So that being the case, you're not inclined to strive very hard in the holy life. So these are the 5 shackles. Monks, that any monk who has abandoned 5 wildernesses in the heart and severed 5 shackles in the heart should come to growth, increase, and fulfillment in this Dhamma Vinaya. That is possible. What monks are the 5 wildernesses in the heart that he has abandoned? Here a monk is not doubtful, uncertain, undecided, or unconfident about the teacher, and thus his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, the first wilderness in the heart has been abandoned by him. Again, a monk is not doubtful, uncertain, undecided, or unconfident about the Dhamma. Number 3, again, a monk is not doubtful, uncertain, undecided, or unconfident about the Sangha. Number 4, again, a monk is not doubtful, uncertain, undecided, or unconfident about the training. Number 5, again, a monk is not angry and displeased with his companions in the holy life, nor resentful and careless towards them, and thus his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, the 5th wilderness in the heart has been abandoned by him. These are the 5 wildernesses in the heart that he has abandoned. What monks are the 5 shackles in the heart that he has severed? Here a monk is free from lust, desire, affection, thirst, fever, and craving for sensual pleasures, and thus his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, the first shackle in the heart has been severed by him. Again, a monk is free from lust, desire, affection, thirst, fever, and craving for the body. And number 3, again, a monk is free from lust, desire, affection, thirst, fever, and craving for form. That means other bodies. Number 4, again, a monk does not eat as much as he likes until his belly is full and does not indulge in the pleasures of sleeping, lolling, and drowsing. Number 5, again, a monk does not live the holy life aspiring to some order of gods. Thus, by this virtue or observance or asceticism or holy life, I shall become a great god or some lesser god. And thus his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, the 5th shackle in the heart has been severed by him. These are the 5 shackles in the heart that he has severed. Monks, that any monk who has abandoned these 5 wildernesses in the heart and severed these 5 shackles in the heart should come to growth, increase, and fulfillment in this Dhamma Vinaya. That is possible. Stop here for a moment. So here, the converse for a monk is to not have these 5 wildernesses or these 5 shackles in the heart, and then he can progress on the spiritual path. He develops the basis for psychic power consisting in concentration of desire and determined striving. He develops the basis for psychic power consisting in concentration of energy and determined striving. He develops the basis for psychic power consisting in concentration of mind and determined striving. He develops the basis for psychic power consisting in concentration of investigation and determined striving. And enthusiasm is the 5th. A monk who thus possesses the 15 factors including enthusiasm is capable of breaking out, capable of enlightenment, capable of attaining the supreme security from bondage. Let's stop here for a moment. So these last 5 things, 4 of them is the 4 iddhipada, the basis for psychic power. And the 5th one, the Buddha has added is enthusiasm. Enthusiasm to strive in the holy life. So 15 factors means the 5 wildernesses, the 5 shackles, the 4 bases of psychic power, iddhipadas, plus enthusiasm, that will be 15. Suppose there were a hen with 8, 10, or 12 eggs, which she had covered, incubated, and nurtured properly. Even though she did not wish, oh, that my chicks might pierce their shells with the points of their claws and beaks and hatch out safely. Yet the chicks are capable of piercing their shells with the points of their claws and beaks and hatching out safely. So too, a monk who thus possesses the 15 factors, including enthusiasm, is capable of breaking out, capable of enlightenment, capable of attaining the supreme security from bondage. That is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So here, the Buddha is saying that if a person wants to become enlightened, he must not have these 5 wildernesses in the heart, or the 5 shackles in the heart. And then he should have the 4 iddhipadas, the 4 bases of psychic power, which means determined striving and concentration of desire, concentration of energy, concentration of mind, and concentration of investigation. Investigation means investigation of the Dhamma, plus enthusiasm to strive. So when you don't have these unwholesome states of or wildernesses and shackles, and you make great effort, you're enthusiastic to strive on the spiritual path, then it is possible to become enlightened. So this is another sutta. Now we come to Sutta number 17, Vanapata Sutta, jungle tickets. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. There he addressed the monks thus, Monks, Venerable Sir, or Bhante, they replied. The Blessed One said this, Monks, I shall teach you a discourse on jungle tickets. Listen and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, Venerable Sir, the monks replied. The Blessed One said this, Hear, monks, a monk lives in some jungle thicket. While he is living there, his unestablished mindfulness does not become established. His unconcentrated mind does not become concentrated. His undestroyed taints or asavas do not come to destruction. He does not attain the unattained supreme security from bondage. And also the requisites of life that should be obtained by one gone forth, robes, alms, food, resting place, and medicinal requisites, are hard to come by. That monk should consider thus, I am living in this jungle thicket. While I am living here, my unestablished mindfulness does not become established. My unconcentrated mind does not become concentrated. My undestroyed taints or asavas do not come to destruction. I do not attain the unattained supreme security from bondage. And also the requisites of life are hard to come by. That monk should depart from that jungle thicket that very night or that very day. He should not continue living there. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is saying that if a monk stays in a certain place and he strives on the spiritual path, but he is not making progress, his unestablished mindfulness does not become established. His mind does not become concentrated, and he does not destroy the asavas. The asavas refers to the uncontrolled mental outflows, basically the flow of consciousness, which because consciousness is that which creates the world. So, and also the requisites are hard to come by, difficult to get. For example, if a monk stays in a jungle place full of snakes and mosquitoes and creepy crawlies, and it's very difficult to practice, so he's not making progress. And also because he's staying so deep in the forest, very difficult to get requisites. So the Buddha says he should leave that very same day or night. Don't stay there. Here, monks, a monk lives in some jungle thicket. While he is living there, his unestablished mindfulness does not become established. His unconcentrated mind does not become concentrated. His undestroyed taints do not come to destruction. He does not attain the unattained supreme security from bondage. Yet the requisites of life that should be obtained by one gone forth are easy to come by. That monk should consider thus, I am living in this jungle thicket. While I am living here, my unestablished mindfulness does not become established. My unconcentrated mind does not become concentrated, etc. I do not attain the unattained supreme security from bondage. Yet the requisites of life that should be obtained by one gone forth are easy to come by. However, I did not go forth from the home life to homelessness for the sake of robes, alms, food, resting place, and medicinal requisites. Moreover, while I am living here, my unestablished mindfulness does not become established. My unconcentrated mind does not become concentrated, etc. Having reflected thus, that monk should depart from that jungle thicket. He should not continue living there. I stop here for a moment. So here, the monk stays in a particular place, and he gets a lot of requisites. However, he's not making progress. For example, if he stays in a town monastery, and there's plenty of support from the lay people. He gets plenty of robes, plenty of good food, and stays in an aircon room, etc., having a good life. But he cannot progress on the spiritual path. Then the Buddha says he should depart. Not necessary to depart the same day, but he should depart soon. Now to continue. Here, monks, a monk lives in some jungle thicket. While he is living there, his unestablished mindfulness becomes established. His unconcentrated mind becomes concentrated. His undestroyed taints come to destruction. He attains the unattained supreme security from bondage. Yet the requisites of life that should be obtained by one gone forth are hard to come by. The monk should consider thus: I am living in this jungle thicket. While I am living here, my unestablished mindfulness has become established. I have attained the unattained supreme security from bondage. Yet the requisites of life are hard to come by. However, I did not go forth from the home life into homelessness for the sake of robes, arms, food, resting place, and medicinal requisites. Moreover, while I am living here, my unestablished mindfulness has become established, etc. I have attained the unattained supreme security from bondage. Having reflected thus, that monk should continue living in that jungle thicket. He should not depart. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, this monk, he's staying in the jungle, where it's very difficult to get the requisites. Maybe insufficient food, or not much food, or not so good quality food, and the other requisites also hard to come by. But he's making progress. For example, if a monk stays in the hills and are supported by the hill tribes, there the offerings of the requisites are not so good, but because he's in a very lonely place, he's making progress, then the Buddha says he should continue staying there. Here monks, a monk lives in some jungle thicket. While he's living there, his unestablished mindfulness becomes established. His unconcentrated mind becomes concentrated. His undestroyed taints come to destruction. He attains the unattained supreme security from bondage. And also the requisites of life that should be obtained by one gone forth, robes, arms, food, resting place, and medicinal requisites, are easy to come by. That monk should consider thus: I am living in this jungle thicket. While I am living here, my unestablished mindfulness has become established. I have attained the unattained supreme security from bondage. And also the requisites of life are easy to come by. That monk should continue living in that jungle thicket as long as life lasts. He should not depart. So this fourth one, this monk stays in this jungle place. The requisites are quite well provided, and also he makes progress on the spiritual path. Then the Buddha says that is the ideal. Stay there until the end of life. Don't go anywhere. And then the Buddha repeats the same four things, four conditions for different places. Here monks, a monk lives in dependence upon a certain village. And again, these four conditions. He stays in a certain village and he does not progress, and the requisites are hard to come by. Then he should depart the very same day. And then secondly, he stays in a certain place, in a certain village. He does not progress, but there is plentiful supply of requisites. He should still depart. Third, he stays in a place where the requisites are not much, but he is making progress. So the Buddha says he should continue staying there. Fourth, he stays in this village and he is making progress, and the requisites are also easy to get. Then the Buddha says you stay there until the end of life. Similarly, here a monk lives in dependence upon a certain town, the same four conditions. Here a monk lives in dependence upon a certain city, also the same four conditions. Here a monk lives in dependence upon a certain country, again the four conditions. So here, these are all talking about a place. What is a suitable place for a monk? So according to the sutta here, what is a suitable place for a monk is where he makes progress. Ideally, if he makes progress and he gets a lot of requisites, that is the ideal. And the sutta continues. Here monks, a monk lives in dependence upon a certain person, that means a certain teacher, certain acharya or achan. And then as before, he lives in dependence upon a certain teacher, and he does not make progress. And also the requisites are hard to come by. And then the Buddha says, that monk should depart from that teacher without taking leave. He should not continue following him. Then the second teacher, here monks, a monk lives in dependence upon a certain person, a certain teacher, and then staying there, he does not make progress, but plenty of requisites. Having reflected thus that monk should depart from that person after taking leave, he should not continue following him. And the third one, here monks, a monk lives in dependence upon a certain person, a certain teacher, and he makes progress, but the requisites are hard to come by. Having reflected thus that monk should continue following that person, he should not depart. Number 4, here monks, a monk lives in dependence upon a certain teacher, and then he makes progress, and also the requisites are plentiful. That monk should continue following that person as long as life lasts. He should not depart from him, even if told to go away. That is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So this sutta is again another very practical sutta. The first part is telling you what is a suitable place to stay. If you stay in a certain cave or a certain forest or in a certain secluded place, and you are making progress, the Buddha says continue staying there. But if you are not making progress, then leave, the Buddha says. Similarly, if you follow a certain teacher and you make progress, then you should stay with him. Even if he chases you away, also you you don't run away. Kicks you out of the door, so you crawl back. But if you are not making progress, then even though he asks you to stay, you should leave. So that is the Buddha's teachings. So it's a very clear where to stay, what teacher to follow. Number 18, Sutta number 18, Majjhima Nikaya, Madhu Pindika Sutta, the honey ball. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living in the Sakyan country at Kapilavatthu in the Nigroda's park. Then when it was morning, the Blessed One dressed, and taking his bowl and outer robe, went into Kapilavatthu for alms. The outer robe is what you're wearing. This is a shivon, this is the outer robe. When he had wandered for alms in Kapilavatthu and had returned from his alms round, after his meal he went to the great wood for the day's abiding, and entering the great wood, sat down at the root of a bilva sapling for the day's abiding. Dandapani, the Sakyan, while walking and wandering for exercise, also went to the great wood. And when he had entered the great wood, he went to the bilva sapling, where the Blessed One was, and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he stood at one side, leaning on his stick, and asked the Blessed One, "What does the recluse assert? What does he proclaim?" And the Buddha said, "Friend, I assert and proclaim that one. I assert and proclaim such that one does not quarrel with anyone in the world, with its gods, its maras, and its brahmas. In this generation, with its recluses and Brahmins, its princes and its people, such that perceptions no more underlie that Brahmana who abides detached from sensual pleasures, without perplexity, shorn of worry, free from craving for any kind of being." I'll stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is asked, what does he teach? Then the Buddha says, he teaches that he teaches such that he does not quarrel with anyone. And also his teaching is such that perceptions no more underlie the Brahmana. Here the Brahmana, this word Brahmana originally referred to the Brahmana caste, the Brahmin caste. Originally the Brahmana caste were ascetics, ascetics, recluses. So later they were employed by the king to be advisors. So they did not practice the spiritual path anymore. So later that this Brahmana caste came to be called Brahmins. But this word Brahmana can mean the Brahmin caste as was used originally, or it can mean the religious person, the ascetic or the recluse or the monk. So here, when the word Brahmana is used, it means the religious man. So the Buddha says that his teaching is such that perceptions no more underlie the Brahmana who abides detached from sensual pleasures, without perplexity, shorn of worry, free from craving for any kind of being. When this was said, Dandapani the Sakyan shook his head, wagged his tongue, and raised his eyebrows until his forehead was puckered in 3 lines. Then he departed, leaning on his stick. But obviously, he didn't know what the Buddha was talking about. He was so bewildered. Then when it was evening, the Blessed One rose from meditation and went to Nigroda's park, where he sat down on a seat made ready for him, and told the monks what had taken place. Then a certain monk asked the Blessed One, "But Venerable Sir, what is that the Blessed One asserts, whereby one does not quarrel with anyone in the world, with its gods, its maras, and brahmas, in this generation with its recluses and brahmins, its princes and its people? And Venerable Sir, how is it that perceptions no more underline that Brahmana, who abides detached from sensual pleasures, without perplexity, shorn of worry, free from craving for any kind of being?" So here this monk also didn't understand. So he asked the Buddha to explain. And the Buddha said, "Monks, as to the source through which perceptions and notions tinged by mental proliferation beset a man, if nothing is found there to delight in, welcome, or hold to, this is the end of the underlying tendency to lust, of the underlying tendency to aversion, of the underlying tendency to views, of the underlying tendency to doubt, of the underlying tendency to conceit, of the underlying tendency to desire for being, of the underlying tendency to ignorance. This is the end of resorting to rods and weapons, of quarrels, brawls, disputes, recrimination, malice, and false speech. Here these evil, unwholesome states cease without remainder." That is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, the Sublime One rose from his seat and went into his dwelling. So here the Buddha says that source from which perceptions and notions arise, if nothing is delighted in there, if you do not delight in that source, welcome or hold on to it, that is the end of the underlying tendencies to lust, aversion, etc. Then soon after the Blessed One had gone, the monks considered, "Now friends, the Blessed One has arisen from his seat and gone into his dwelling, after giving a summary in brief without expounding the detailed meaning. Now who will expound this in detail?" Then they considered, "The Venerable Maha Kachana is praised by the teacher and esteemed by his wise companions in the holy life. He is capable of expounding the detailed meaning. Suppose we went to him and asked him the meaning of this." Then the monks went to the Venerable Maha Kachana and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, they sat down to one side and told him what had taken place, adding, "That the Venerable Maha Kachana expounded to us." The Venerable Maha Kachana replied, "Friends, it is as though a man needing hardwood, seeking hardwood, wandering in search of hardwood, thought that hardwood should be sought for among the branches and leaves of a great tree standing possessed of hardwood, after he had passed over the root and the trunk. So it is with you, Venerable Sirs, that you think that I should be asked about the meaning of this, after you passed the Blessed One by, when you were face to face with the teacher. For knowing, the Blessed One knows; seeing, he sees. He is vision, he is knowledge, he is the Dhamma, he is the Holy One. He is the sayer, the proclaimer, the elucidator of meaning, the giving of the deathless, the Lord of the Dhamma, the Tathagata. That was the time when you should have asked the Blessed One the meaning. As he told you, so you should have remembered it." I'll stop here for a moment. So here Venerable Maha Kachana is saying, you had the Buddha in front of you and you never asked him. It's just like the hardwood is in front of you, and you don't know that it is hardwood. You go and look for the leaves and the branches, which is worthless. So he's saying, I'm like the leaves and the branches. The Buddha is the enlightened one now. Why you ask me? Then they said, surely friend Kachana, knowing the Blessed One knows, seeing he sees, he is vision, etc., the Tathagata. That was the time when we should have asked the Blessed One the meaning. As he told us, so we should have remembered it. Yet the Venerable Maha Kachana is praised by the teacher and esteemed by his wise companions in the holy life. The Venerable Maha Kachana is capable of expounding the detailed meaning of this summary given in brief by the Blessed One without given in brief by the Blessed One without expounding the detailed meaning. Let the Venerable Maha Kachana expound it without finding it troublesome. Then listen, friends, and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, friend, the monks replied. The Venerable Maha Kachana said, friends, when the Blessed One rose from his seat and went into his dwelling after giving a summary in brief without expounding the detailed meaning, that is, monks, as to the source through which perceptions and notions tinge my mental proliferation beset a man. If nothing is found there to delight in, welcome, and hold to, this is the end of the underlying tendency to lust, etc. This is the end of resorting to rods and weapons. Here, those evil, unwholesome states cease without remainder. I understand the detailed meaning of it to be as follows. Dependent on the I and forms, I consciousness arises. The meeting of the three is contact. With contact as condition, there is feeling. What one feels, that one perceives. What one perceives, that one thinks about. What one thinks about, that one mentally proliferates. With what one has mentally proliferated as the source, perceptions and notions tinged by mental proliferation beset a man with respect to past, future, and present forms, recognizable through the eye. Dependent on the ear and sounds, dependent on the nose and odors, dependent on the tongue and flavors, body and tangibles, dependent on the mind and mind objects. Similarly, the meeting of the three is contact. With contact as condition, there is feeling. What one feels, that one perceives. What one perceives, that one thinks about. What one thinks about, one mentally proliferates. With what one has mentally proliferated as the source, perceptions and notions tinged by mental proliferation beset a man with respect to past, future, and present. So here, let's stop here for a moment. So here what the Venerable Maha Kachana is saying is that our six sense bases has these six sense objects. So the meeting of the sense object with the sense base causes the consciousness to arise. So when consciousness arises, it is followed by feeling, perception, proliferation. So that's basically what he says. So it is the contact of the sense object with the sense base that causes this feeling, perception, etc. to arise. And he continues, when there is the I, a form and I consciousness, it is possible to point out the manifestation of contact. When there is the manifestation of contact, it is possible to point out the manifestation of feeling. When there is the manifestation of feeling, it is possible to point out the manifestation of perception. When there is the manifestation of perception, it is possible to point out the manifestation of thinking. When there is the manifestation of thinking, it is possible to point out the manifestation of being, beset by perceptions and notions tinged by mental proliferation. Similarly, when there is the ear, sound and ear consciousness, when there is the nose, odor and nose consciousness, etc., it is possible to point out the manifestation of feeling, perception, thinking, etc., mental proliferation. When there is no I, no form, and no I consciousness, it is impossible to point out the manifestation of contact. When there is no manifestation of contact, it is impossible to point out the manifestation of feeling. When there is no manifestation of feeling, it is impossible to point out the manifestation of perception. When there is no manifestation of perception, it is impossible to point out the manifestation of thinking. When there is no manifestation of thinking, it is impossible to point out the manifestation of being beset by perceptions and notions tinged by mental proliferation. Similarly, when there is no ear, no sound, and no ear consciousness, no nose, no odor, and no nose consciousness, etc. So here, basically, what he's saying is that when there is the sense basis and the sense objects, feeling, perception, thinking, etc., arise. But when there is no sense base and no sense object, then there is no contact. Because of no contact, there is no feeling, no perception, no thinking, no mental proliferation. Friends, when the Blessed One rose from his seat and went into his dwelling, after giving a summary in brief, without expounding the detailed meaning, that is, monks, as to the source through which perceptions and notions tinged by mental proliferation beset a man, if nothing is found there to delight in, welcome and hold to, that is the end of the underlying tendency to lust, of the underlying tendency to aversion, of the underlying tendency to views, of the underlying tendency to doubt, of the underlying tendency to conceit, of the underlying tendency to desire for being, of the underlying tendency to ignorance. This is the end of resorting to rods and weapons, of quarrels, brawls, disputes, recrimination, malice, and false speech. Here these evil, unwholesome states cease without remainder. I understand the detailed meaning of this summary to be thus. Now, friends, if you wish, go to the Blessed One and ask him about the meaning of this. As the Blessed One explains it to you, so should you remember it. Then the monks, having delighted and rejoiced in the Venerable Mahakachana's words, rose from their seats and went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to him, they sat down to one side and told the Blessed One all that had taken place after he had left, adding, "Then, Venerable Sir, we went to the Venerable Mahakachana and asked him about the meaning. The Venerable Mahakachana expounded the meaning to us with these terms, statements, and phrases." And the Buddha said, "Mahakachana is wise, monks. Mahakachana has great wisdom. If you had asked me the meaning of this, I would have explained it to you in the same way that Mahakachana explained it. Such is the meaning of this, so should you remember it." When this was said, the Venerable Ananda said to the Blessed One, "Venerable Sir, just as if a man exhausted by hunger and weakness came upon a honey ball, in the course of eating it, he would find a sweet, delectable flavor. So too, Venerable Sir, any able-minded monk, in the course of scrutinizing with wisdom the meaning of this discourse on the Dhamma, would find satisfaction and confidence of mind. Venerable Sir, what is the name of this discourse on the Dhamma?" As to that, Ananda, you may remember this discourse on the Dhamma as the honey ball discourse. That is what the Blessed One said. The Venerable Ananda was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. That's the end of the sutta. So basically here, I guess when the Buddha says that firstly, when he teaches the Dhamma, he does not quarrel with anyone in the world. There is one sutta, one interesting sutta, I'm not sure whether it's Anguttara Nikaya or Samyutta Nikaya, I forgot, where the Buddha says, "The world quarrels with me, I do not quarrel with the world. He who teaches the Dhamma does not quarrel with the world." Why does the Buddha say he does not quarrel with the world? Because I think a lot of external sect teachers found fault with the Buddha. So they want to quarrel with the Buddha, saying, criticize the Buddha and all that. But the Buddha says, because when the Buddha taught the Dhamma, he contradicted a lot of other teachings. So because he contradicted a lot of other teachings, the other external sect teachers were not happy with him. So they found fault with him, criticized him and all that. So it's as though he has a big quarrel with them. But the Buddha says he does not quarrel with them, they quarrel with me. The Buddha says he who teaches the Dhamma does not quarrel with the world. So here the Buddha says he does not quarrel with anyone. Secondly, he says that he teaches such a teaching that perceptions no more underlie the Brahmana, the holy man, who abides detached from sensual pleasures, without perplexity, shorn of worry, free from craving. So the Buddha's teaching is such that if a monk practices it, then he abides detached from sensual pleasures. And when he is detached from sensual pleasures, then he is without the perceptions, perplexity, worries, craving for any kind of being. Also, later the Buddha said, as to the source to which perceptions and notions tinged by mental proliferation beset a man, if nothing is found there to delight in, welcome and hold on to, this is the end of the underlying tendency to lust, to aversion, to views, to doubt, etc. So here, I guess what he's saying, the source from which perceptions and notions arise is the sense objects, sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touch, and thoughts. If we delight in those things, because we tend to delight in worldly things, like beautiful sights, rock music, perfume, good food, and all that. We delight in these worldly things. Then the underlying tendency to lust, aversion, views, doubt, everything all arise. So the Buddha says that if we do not delight in these things, the source of all these mental proliferations, that is the end of quarrels and brawls and disputes, etc. Okay, we stop here for tonight. Sutta number 18, not chapter, sutta. Not cut, we don't delight in it. Don't delight, don't cling in sights, sounds, smells, and all that. The Buddha says somewhere that the cause of the round of rebirths is craving for delighting in this and that. The normal person, because life is very boring, Buddha says life is dukkha. So for the normal person, we always trying to find amusement. You delight in this. If you just stay at home and do nothing, you find so boring. You must watch the Astro, or you watch the football, or you go out karaoke. At least also teh tarik. Go and simbang. So we distract ourselves from the dukkha, because if you just do nothing, then you feel dukkha. Life is dukkha, so we find it unbearable. So we tend to want to look for pleasure here and there. That's why the Buddha says, always delighting in this and that, changing. You enjoy something also, after some time, it becomes boring already. And you get more of it, it becomes a nuisance already. For example, you listen to music. The music is very nice. But it plays non-stop. You find irritating already. If it plays 24 hours a day, it's suffering already. So you have to change. Have to change. So that's why we always delight in this and that. Always changing. It's just that for the normal person, we don't have the Buddha's instructions. For a normal person who does not know the Dhamma, he does not know how to analyze, how to see this. But because we have the Buddha's instructions, the Buddha tells us, then we go and observe. Life is like that. H-E-A-R-T, heart, wood, is supposed to be the very core, isn't it? The deepest part of the wood, which the deepest part of the wood will be the oldest. Being the oldest, it will be the hardest. That's why it's called hardwood, the very heart of it.
Can we refer back to Majjhima Nikaya 17? where the Buddha described the 4 conditions where a monk should stay
Yeah.
or live. Just to was wondering how long would a monk stay to really know that he is progressing or what? Because we tend to see many monks, they move from one place to another, and how would they know whether they're progressing or whether they've given the place or the teacher a chance to really help them cultivate?
You're asking how long, is it?
Yeah, because whether it's one vata or whatever, because it's hard to gauge, isn't it? Whether if a monk were to stay in a place very short for a very short while, how would he be able to gauge whether he's progressing or not?
Certain things, how to gauge, for example, the teacher, there are certain things that are obvious, certain things are obvious. For example, you see the teacher, his Vinaya is very bad. He's very greedy and his temper is very, very nasty and all these things. So it's so obvious. The Buddha says, a new monk, when he goes to stay with the teacher, he's supposed to ask for Nisaya. Ask for Nisaya means ask for dependence. He wants to be dependent upon that teacher. But the Buddha says, first he has to observe maybe 4 or 5 days. And if he finds the teacher, it's very obvious that the teacher is greedy and does not practice and does not meditate and has a lot of bad qualities. Then after 4 or 5 days, if he sees that, the Buddha says, then you don't take dependence, you leave, as stated in the Vinaya book. But if that is not obvious, then if a monk stays with the teacher, in the Vinaya, it is stated that if an external sect ascetic who was following some other external sect teacher, he comes and wants to become a monk. So the Buddha says, firstly, he has to do this probationary period of about 4 months. During these 4 months, the monks will observe him, whether he has given up some of his wrong views. So if he within that in the 4 months, if he is willing to change his wrong views and to learn the Dhamma, then the Buddha says after 4 months, the monks can accept him and ordain him. So in the monks' Vinaya, it would appear like 4 months is a reasonable time to know a person, to gauge a person. So whether it's gauging a disciple or gauging a teacher, period of 4 months is reasonable. But sometimes for some people, 4 months, how do you say, the unwholesome qualities do not, it's not so obvious, don't surface. Sometimes it takes longer than that to know that person well. That's why in the Suttas, the Buddha says that to know a person really deep inside, you have to associate with him for a long time. And not only that, you have to live with him and associate with him for a long time. And also you have to be very sharp. You have to be very observant to know a person. So for some people, it takes longer. Okay.
Monday, what about a place? Let's say a monk go to a place to stay. How would you know whether let's say if they keep moving about, how would they know whether that place is suitable for him to cultivate? Would it mean that around 4 months also that he should be able to know whether the place is suitable for him to progress spiritually?
In the same way, there are certain things that you can see quite immediately after staying for a few days. You can see immediately. Certain things are not so obvious. Takes longer to see. For example, if a monk goes to a monastery where all the monks are not interested in meditation, after staying just a few days, that all the monks there are not interested in meditation. If you try to be more hardworking, then you're going to clash with the other monks. So then you have to run away.
Thank you. The Sutta number 16, item 26. Is this more like the 7 factors of enlightenment?
26. This is the 4 Iddhipada. The 4 Iddhipada come under the 37 requisites of enlightenment.
The same sutta, the Buddha says that the monk who has the unwholesome quality of craving for sensual pleasure, but I would guess that craving for food, overeating and overeating are also sensual pleasure. I was wondering why the Buddha specifically point out this too, where he has already mentioned craving for sensual pleasure.
In this case, it might be like sexual pleasure, liking to see somebody of the opposite sex, liking to talk to somebody of the opposite sex, and all these things.
I'm asking this question on behalf. If you, in your previous life, had lots of bad karma, you did lots of bad karma, in this very life, if you you start to do many meritorious deeds, does that cancel out the previous life's karma?
It is not cancelling out. In the Buddha's teachings, whatever karma we create cannot be cancelled. Either it ripens as vipaka, or it has the potential to ripen. But not all karma will ripen, the Buddha says. It is the heavy karmas that will ripen first. So the Buddha says, if we don't want our evil karma to ripen, then we have to do a lot of good deeds. When we do a lot of good deeds, then we become happy. And those good deeds that we do will immediately give us happiness, and we forgot about the evil karma. So when we forgot about the evil karma, it does not ripen. Karma ripening is when we remember it. When you remember it, only you feel remorse, and you suffer for it. So the Buddha says, we do a lot of good deeds. Now, doing good deeds, the simplest is charity. But because it's the simplest, the merit is the least. Slightly more difficult is keeping sila, moral conduct. That is more difficult to do, so the merit is more. And then better than that is to practice the spiritual path, study the Dhamma and change your character. Try to change. Look at your own faults. If you are too greedy for food, don't eat so much. If you are too greedy for sleep, don't sleep so much. If you have bad temper, try to change your bad temper. But then it's difficult to change ourselves if our mind is not strong. That's why we need to meditate. When we meditate, the mind becomes stronger, and we can see more clearly our faults, and we have the strength of mind to change. So the practicing the spiritual path, because it's the hardest, the merit is the greatest. So like during the Buddha's time, we had a bandit called Angulimala. He killed hundreds of people. So he would have gone down to hell, but the Buddha saw that this person had the potential. So the Buddha went to him, taught him the Dhamma, and he became a monk. After he became a monk, he strove very hard because he knew the Buddha warned him that hell was waiting for him. So he strove so hard that he became an arahant. After he became an arahant, he did not have to pay all that evil karma in hell. So that's why spiritual path, the merit is the greatest.
Okay. I think Buddha has a preference for younger people to go into the monastic order. And I think he cited some reasons why elderly are not so suitable. I cannot recollect what the 5 reasons why. For example, like we are a bit slow, hard to teach, and so on and so forth.
When we are young, we have more energy, we have more enthusiasm. So when we become a monk early in life, we are fit, so we can go and stay in the forest and stand the cold, sleep on the bare ground, withstand the wind and all that. Like last time, I used to like to stay in caves. And sometimes I stay in caves, there's a constant breeze going through the cave. But when I meditated, the body becomes so hot, then very strong wind also I can stand. You feel like your body is on fire like that, I can stand very strong wind. But at the age of 45, I noticed the wind got into my bones. So at the age of 45, you cannot stand our chi, our vital energy starts to decrease. Also, when we grow old, we have very strong patterns. As we, every day, our way of thinking becomes ingrained in us. So as they say, old bamboo is harder to bend. Young bamboo is easier to bend. So when you are old, you have more fixed views. So there's a sutta. There's a sutta where the Buddha says sometimes a certain person comes into monkhood, and then because he has just come into monkhood, the more senior monks will tell him, you cannot do this, you must do in this way and all these things. Then he thinks to himself, this young fellow, he can be my son or my grandson. He's teaching me this and that. Chinese say, I've eaten more salt than he has eaten rice. So you cannot stand. You cannot stand being told off by a young monk. But he may be young in age, but in seniority, he may be older than you. That's why he has a right to tell you off. So that's another reason. So also as we grow older, because our faculties become weaker, it's harder to sit straight and meditate. Your mind also becomes weaker already. After 60, even some people after 50, the mind becomes weaker. So it's very hard to concentrate. You see, like when the Buddha was practicing the ascetic practices, he ate so little. The Buddha said there's a stage where he ate 1 grain of rice a day. So he was so weak that he did not have the strength to enter samadhi, to enter jhana. So later when he realized that the path out of samsara is samadhi, he wanted to attain the jhanas again. Then he found that he has to make his body stronger. So he took 1 meal a day instead of 1 grain of rice a day. He took one full meal a day, and then when his body was strong enough, then he could concentrate and enter samadhi. So as we grow older, our faculties become weaker. It's more difficult for an old man to enter samadhi unless in younger days he has already attained it. If at the age of 30-something or 40-something you have attained it, later when you are practicing at the age of 70, you can still attain it because you already you have the blaze trail already.
But they asked this question because I've heard that in Thailand they stop elderly people above 60 to join the monastery, and also in Malaysia.
I think that there is no general rule like this. In the Vinaya, the Buddha says if a person is too old until he's become feeble and he needs to be looked after and all that, then he's not allowed to ordain. He becomes a liability. So there is no limit spoken by the Buddha. It seems like according to the Buddhist books, even there was somebody who was 120 years old also could become an arahant in the Theravada or somewhere. So of course that is exceptional case. So you find certain monasteries which are very well supported and they have too many monks. And then they impose more stringent conditions. I remember many years ago, this Dhammakaya in Bangkok, Thailand. They have a lot of graduates, coming to become monks, and they have a lot of monks. A lot of them are graduates, and then they impose stricter conditions. After 40, they don't accept. After 40 years old, they don't accept. They can afford to, when you can't afford to, when you don't have monks, then you accept. Old guys also. So it depends on the market, they say.
You just say, people like us, in our 60s, late 60s, there's no chance at all of entering the monkhood, even though we wanted to.
It depends on your age is one thing. Another thing is there are other qualities that make a person suitable or not suitable to become a monk. For example, we had one old man helping us, on our Pindapata and all this thing. He was very supportive, and he's about 70 years old. And I asked him to come and become a monk because he has those qualities. He's a very sincere person, very interested in the Dhamma and all that, but he could not let go.
Okay, just one last one for me. My purpose of coming to do this Samanera is actually to prepare myself for the next life. Because it is tend to one day.
Yeah, this is the last train already.
Yeah. Think to catch the last train before you miss the train. So, in this life at 70 you can't do very much, but at least you make an effort and start doing, cultivating. You can go far, you can't, at least the next life there's some better opportunity. Because I know, some young monks, they can wear the robe instantly. Last life maybe they were already monks. Like me, so difficult. Never been monk before, I think. So this is my purpose of becoming a Samanera, and I've tried many other places also. Samanera also. So I just take a day at a time because time is limited.
Yeah, like you can do this 3 months is very good. Those that are 2 weeks, not much meaning because 2 weeks you can't do anything, you can't learn anything. Question is how do the more senior monks admonish each other? Well, in the Vinaya, it's stated that if we want to advise another monk, we have to ask permission first, whether he asks for permission to to say something lah. And then if he allows you, then only you can say lah. Then after that, but firstly, even before we want to say anything, we have to gauge this person, whether he's willing to be admonished or not. If he's not willing to be admonished, there's no point. Whether it's a monk or a lay person, also the same. If you want to admonish another person, you have to see whether he can accept or not, whether he's willing to change or not. If he's not willing to change, no point. You're wasting your breath. Just like in the Suttas we read, this Samyutta Nikaya, the monk who went to the forest to practice, then he saw this hunter hunting, killing animals, and then this monk tried to admonish him. Of course, he didn't listen. Then after that, the Deva came to tell off this monk. Don't waste your time. Go ahead, trying to admonish this type of person. He's not going to listen to you. He's not going to change his ways. So in the same way, we have to see if that person wants to change. If one person wants to change, then we help him, tell him his fault. Doesn't want to change, we don't tell him. Wasting our breath, and you create an enemy also.
One thing, sometimes you see fellow Dhamma parents, like monks and monks, they may be very close in their vasa, like maybe same year, you see. Then let's say you have a Dhamma discussion, and probably this person may not have right view, and the other person probably his understanding of the Dhamma is better. And let's say he rebut the other person, though that person is maybe slightly more senior, would that be disrespectful, or would he be, if he is wrong, very obviously not his understanding of the Dhamma or Sutta is not practice, or rather his understanding of the Sutta is wrong, the other person will rebut him, would it be wrong?
No, because if we are having a discussion, then everybody can express their view. So it's all right to say. But in the Vinaya, if some among the monks, somebody wants to teach the Dhamma or wants to teach the Vinaya, it is the most senior monk who is expected to do the teaching. And if the other monks want a more junior monk to speak, then the junior monk has to ask permission from the senior monk. And then the senior monk gives him permission, then only he can teach the Dhamma.
But one day, if let's say it's just a normal Dhamma discussion between two fellow monks,
then if it's just discussion, it's okay. It's
but
all right.
The other person will rebut this person, and this person get very angry or express that he is more senior, and the other person is not supposed to.
He should not, if they want to discuss, then he should be free to express themselves. But the fact that the senior monk is willing to discuss with the junior monk, it shows that he values his opinion. That's not. Otherwise, I've had a senior monk come to me also to discuss Dhamma. So, when he comes to me, I speak freely. Okay, stop for now. It's getting late.